Hare Krishna. So we are celebrating the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the installation of Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha by Srila Prabhupada here in Boston. That is an incredible milestone as I was thinking about it over the last couple of days. Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha are probably, in any organization, not just ISKCON, but outside ISKCON as well, any organization, Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha are probably, at least among the oldest installed deities outside of India. If we think about it, right, 50 years is actually a remarkable milestone for installed deities outside of India. And the fact that they were installed by a pure Vaishnava. That is an incredible, the fact that we here in Boston and Massachusetts are so close, or in such close proximity to a remarkable place of pilgrimage, and to be able to experience this in our lifetime, it's we are incredibly fortunate. That's been actually sinking in over the last couple of days. Anyways, I was asked to share something about this occasion, and I was thinking, who, me? Because Pujari service and myself have a rather complicated relationship, let's put it in those terms. Pujari service is not my forte. It's not something that I would choose to do as a vocation. Went to Gurukul, I had to go to Pujari class, mantra class, and I did what needed to be done in order to get Brahman initiated and so on. But Pujari service is not my proclivity. And that probably, I think, lends to the fact that I really can appreciate those for whom Pujari service is their proclivity, something they can put their heart and soul. And then Krishna reciprocates with these devotees, these Vaishnavas, these Pujaris who are able to serve in that capacity. The only reciprocation I get from Krishna is a slap across the face. That's how Krishna communicates and reciprocates with me, a hammer over the head. There are so many devotees who have wonderful leelas, wonderful realizations, wonderful stories to share about Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha. And we should hear, I'm looking forward to hearing those stories. So I was thinking, when I was asked, what could I possibly share? I was quite honestly, I was at a loss. But only for a moment. Until Krishna hit me over the head with a hammer again. And the conversation between Shiva and Parvati. Parvati asks Lord Shiva, what is the highest form of worship? And Lord Shiva replies with that verse, Aradhananam sarvesham, Vishnu aradhanam param, tasmat paratanam devi, tadiyanam samarchanam. Lord Shiva replies, he was saying, above all types of worship, the worship of Lord Vishnu is absolutely topmost. However, above the worship of Lord Vishnu is the worship of the Vaishnavas. And that's what I can celebrate, at least in this time. Celebrate the devotees who are serving Radha Gopivallabha. The servants of Radha Gopivallabha are worshipable, more worshipable than Radha Gopivallabha. This is the opinion of Lord Shiva. That I can celebrate. That I can share. That is where I've had realizations. That is where Krishna has slapped me across the face. Radha Gopivallabha has slapped me across the face. Living in the Boston Temple, having the good fortune to serve as president of the Boston Temple, and watching and witnessing these servants of Radha Gopivallabha who are more worshipable than Radha Gopivallabha. And we cannot talk about these devotees without first mentioning Krishna Lila, right? Yes, Krishna Lila, I'm talking about you. I don't know if you're going to see this or not. Whether you do is irrelevant. I'm going to share this anyways. We all appreciate, Krishna Lila is like the cement, the mortar that holds the bricks together of a building. Without Krishna Lila, there is no question that the functioning of the Boston Temple will experience an immediate, tangible negative effect. Krishna Lila, I've not been part of the Boston Temple for some time. I moved away and went on to other endeavors. But the time that I experienced serving in the Boston Temple, Krishna Lila, from morning to night, getting up in the morning, preparing the Mangalarti tray, the sweets, the rasgullas, the kheer, everything for the Mangalarti offering, all the way till throughout the entire day, late at night, cleaning, mopping the kitchen floor. All Krishna Lila. Everything in between. Doing the Mangalarti plates, mopping the kitchen floor at night, in the evening, getting up the next morning, doing it again. And doing every other service in between. Cooking in the kitchen, doing the boga run, making sure the most basic aspect of the temple is taken care of and maintained. These are the servants of Radha Gopivallabha who are more worshipable by Lord Shiva's estimation than Sri Radha Gopivallabha. Prahlad, I don't know if he's there in the Boston Temple now. Regulated pujaris. Whenever he was asked to do something and he agreed to do it, he was as reliable as they come. He could be counted on to do what needed to be done when he was asked to do it. If he committed to doing something on the pujari, on the altar, in the pujari department, he did it. He was reliable as they come in that way. These are the servants of Radha Gopivallabha, more worshipable than Sri Radha Gopivallabha. I was thinking of another devotee, Dinatarni Mataji, an incredible devotee, an incredible servant of Radha Gopivallabha. And her serving in the kitchen, cooking, she's an incredible baker. It was always this is me being me, always looking forward to when Dinatarni Mataji is going to be cooking, because she's inevitably going to bake something. And speaking of baking, Krishna Lila, we all know Krishna Lila's cakes, right? Dinatarni as well, an incredible baker. But being dedicated to, whenever there was a gap in who was supposed to cook the evening offering or this offering, I could always rely on going to Mother Dinatarni, says, can you step in and cook this particular offering? And these things were not easy for her to do. For those of us who know Dinatarni can understand this. But she was always, as much as she was capable of doing, going downstairs into the kitchen, cooking up a wonderful meal, baking some incredible preparations for Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha. These are the servants of Radha Gopivallabha, more worshipable than Sri Radha Gopivallabha. All the devotees, Asura Kulanashana. This is very funny. Asura Kulanashana, Vanamali Pandit Prabhu, Sharanagati. This is very interesting. On Sundays, at least back then, I don't know how it is now, but Asura Kulanashana Prabhu was is an incredible cook. And on the weekends, you could tell who was scheduled to cook based on how many people came for the Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Based on how many people came for the Rajbhog Arti and lunch prasadam. Because when Asura Kulanashana Prabhu cooked, I used to get calls, right? I'd be in the office doing something, and the phone would be ringing off the hook on Saturday and Sunday. People calling in for many different reasons, but always asking, who's cooking lunch today? And if it was Asura Kulanashana, there'd be more devotees for the Rajbhog offering. Vanimali Prabhu was like that as well. Vanimali Prabhu would make these, very interesting. I've never said this to him, and well, he's going to see this now. Forgive me. he would make this eggplant preparation. If you know, he would fire roast eggplant. And as a kid, I mean, I don't know any kid in their right mind enjoys eggplant. I was one of them until I went to Gurukul in Mayapur. And no one, at least in my experience, cooks eggplant like Bengalis. Vanamali was not Bengali. But he would cook an eggplant the way I've had eggplant cooked by incredible cooks in Bengal. In Gurukula, we used to actually, maybe I shouldn't say this. I won't share the names. We used to sometimes steal things from the kitchen. Oh. But we would steal something and we would take it out out into the fields, and we would cook whatever we stole from the kitchen. Or if it was milk, we would cook milk and have kheer and sneak off into the fields and drink our kheer and tell stories. And sometimes we would steal an eggplant, and we would take the eggplant out into the sugarcane fields, dig a hole, do a little fire in there, and then fire roast eggplants with salt and chili. And then we would take that little bit of roasted eggplant for lunch and have it with our lunch. And there's nothing like fire roasted eggplant. Valamali Prabhu could do that. So he used to come on when I was in the Boston Temple, he would come in on the weekends occasionally, and he would cook lunch. And he would fire roast eggplant. So he was a Surukul and Ashram Prabhu, Vanamali Prabhu. Whenever I would get calls, who's cooking lunch today? If it was the Surukul and Ashram Prabhu, Vanamali Prabhu, or Sharanagati, oh hey Bhagwan. But if it was any of those three, the lunch, the Rajbhog Arti and offering was packed. There was no, prasadam was gone in 30 minutes, wiped out. Nothing left when a Surukul and Ashram Prabhu was cooking. A Surukul and Ashram Prabhu was very good at some particular subjects. And Vanamali Prabhu with that roasted eggplant. Ugh. And Sharanagati. Sharanagati, she could boil water and you would die thinking you are drinking the nectar that came out of the ocean of milk. that was Sharanagati's cooking. We used to have a program, everything's every Saturday or Friday night. I think it was Friday night. Every Friday night, we would have one of the devotees, for the temple residents, we have a miniature feast once a week in the evening for the resident devotees. And when Sharanagati had time and she would cook that little Friday night party for the residents of the temple, oh my God. The Friday night party was for the residents of the temple. It was a small affair. It was no big thing. It was just something a little special for the residents. But when word got out that this Friday night's party is being cooked by Sharanagati, for some reason there was the number of people who showed up for the Friday night prasadam was twice as many as the residents in the temple because everyone was coming to have some of Sharanagati's prasadam. Sharanagati was very interesting, and I hope, she's going to be seeing this. Not only was she an excellent cook, but she would dress the deities, Sri Radha Gopivallabha, in the most incredible way. She would make these turbans for Gopivallabha that were absolutely incredible. I mean, this is why I can appreciate the servants of Radha Gopivallabha and why I have realized, if there's any realization I've had in Krishna consciousness, it is this, Aradhananam Sarvesham, that the servants of Radha Gopivallabha are more worshipable than Radha Gopivallabha. Sharanagati is one of the cases in point. I would sometimes be on the altar trying to dress Sri Radha Gopivallabha, and Induleka, the head pujari, she would ask, why don't you try to do a turban? Good Lord in heaven. She immediately regretted asking me to do a turban. But if I were to try to make a turban for Radha Gopivallabha or forget about trying to do a turban for Lord Jagannath Baladev, or even for Gaura Nitai, when I would put on a turban for the deities, it was like, you may know, like in a Bollywood movie, you may see like a farmer, an old broken down farmer in the fields, complaining about something. Is in the monsoon, he's rainy, he's wet, and he has his head wrapped up in an old dirty gumshin that's hanging off one side. That's what Radha Gopivallabha looked like when I dressed him in a turban. Like Krishna came out of a monsoon with this cloth hanging off one side of his head. That was Maha Vishnu's attempt at wrapping a turban. Sharanagati, she could wrap a turban that would blow your socks off. I mean, you knew it was a turban, but it did not look like a turban. It was ornate. It was beautiful. It was colorful. It was not overly decorated. Sometimes people can over decorate a turban, and it's just like Gopi Vallabha has a pile of a Govardhan hill of jewels on his head. She was just brilliant at dressing Radha Gopi Vallabha. It was. I am completely under the influence of the modes of material nature. And that's not being falsely humble. I am. But we all have colors we like, right? Our favorite colors, our least favorite colors. And there are some outfits, the colors of which cause me to go cross-eyed. I cannot look at the deities with certain colors. This is my conditioning. I'm trying to work past it to see the beauty of Krishna despite any particular color I don't like. But sometimes, yes, I would create the aparad of going in the temple, seeing Radha Gopivallabha, the deities dressed in a particular color, and it knocks my head. I go cross-eyed, I get a headache trying to look at these colors. Sharanagati could dress Radha Gopivallabha in colors that would give me a headache, usually, but she would dress them in the very same outfit, these particular colors, that would cause me to see the beauty of Radha Gopivallabha in colors I would normally get a migraine looking at. This is Sharanagati. These are the servants of Radha Gopivallabha who are more worshipable than Radha Gopivallabha. I'm reminded of Mother Gopalila. It's been a long time since I've seen or heard from her. I hope she's doing well. Her dressing of the deities was similarly creative. I don't know if they still have them in the Boston temple now. I've not been in the temple it's been COVID for a year and a half. But anyways, she is an incredible, I'm married to an artist, so I have been able to learn to appreciate beautiful art. Otherwise, I'm as colorblind as the next person. But I don't know if she painted or embroidered, however she did, I'm not quite sure. But there's banners in the Boston temple of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. I'm not quite sure if she did the entire Panchatattva, but certainly of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. Incredibly, beautifully, they're like 15 or 10, 15 feet tall, beautifully proportioned and created. And she would make these, I don't know what they were made of. You'd have to ask Indulekha, Mataji. These ornate, like, flowers. I don't know if they were flowers and they had jewels and pearls, but they looked like lotuses and flowers, and they should make them small or very large. And she would place them on the altar around the temple. Mother Gopalila had this incredibly creative ability that was absolutely astounding. And she would similarly dress the deities in an incredibly creative. She would dress, when I had to come into, when Indulekha was forced to put me on the schedule to dress Radha Gopivallabha. And Indulekha, we both know you did not. I was never your first choice. That's okay. I was not my first choice. Anyways, whenever I was forced to dress Sri Radha Gopivallabha, or any of the deities for that matter, everything would be, all the paraphernalia, their clothing, the jewelry would be laid out in front of me. I had no clue what to do with any of it. And I would see, well, I saw Gopalila, Sharanagati, Indulekha use these things, this particular piece of jewelry in this way. I would try to do the same thing, and it looked like someone took this piece of jewelry and threw it on Radha Gopivallabha to see where it would stick. It just would not come together. And Gopalila had a knack of using all kind. I would think, how did she get this on Radha Gopivallabha, Gorni Tai? How? It doesn't make any sense. These are the servants of Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha who are more worshipable than Radha Gopivallabha. They give us the ability to experience, to relate with, to be with Radha Gopivallabha in a way that if we did not have these devotees, we would not be able to have that association. If it was not for Sharanagati, I would not be able to walk into the temple and see Radha Gopivallabha in a particular color and appreciate and see Radha Gopivallabha rather than seeing the conditioning I have of a particular color. These are the servants of Radha Gopivallabha who are more worshipable than Radha Gopivallabha. I made a mistake one time, and I won't mention this devotee's name. And I owe this devotee an apology. I apologized to him at the time. I need to do so again, because the realization is, over the years, it has really sunk in. We know the story of Jai and Vijay, how they stopped the four Kumaras. We know the story of how Jai and Vijay also Jai and Vijay have a habit of stopping people from entering Vaikuntha. Jai and Vijay tried to stop Lakshmi Devi from entering Vaikuntha. Anyways, with this one devotee, he was serving as a pujari for Radha Gopivallabha. He lived outside, he would come in. And as a manager, serving as, the president of the Boston Temple, sometimes I got into management mode and not serve the servants of Radha Gopivallabha. It was all about managing, scheduling, problems, issues. And one of the issues as a foolish manager was making sure things happen on time and in a certain way. So whenever there was an issue and I had to find someone to cover because someone was late, someone was this, then I would lose my cool, not lose sight of the service. The service is to, like Jai and Vijay, help others come closer to Krishna. I would lose sight of that and deal with the managerial issue at hand. So this particular devotee, he was not late, but there was a snowstorm, and I was thinking maybe this devotee might be late. So instead of just waiting for the last minute to make a change, I'm just going to remove this particular devotee off the schedule for Pujari service. So I removed this devotee off the schedule. The devotee came on time, did the service, and then he came to me and says, Maha Visnu, why did you take my name off the schedule? And I was still in management mode. I was still in this Jai Vijay. I wasn't the Jai Vijay. They're devotees of the Lord. They are perfect in their service. That was Leela. But I was in this stuck in this managerial mode, not recognizing, forgetting that my service is to facilitate, to help, to do whatever I can to make sure devotees come closer, can serve Radha Gopivallabha. I flew off the handle and said, no, because of this, because of that. And from a managerial sense, yes, it made sense, in a way. But I was utterly and completely wrong, and that, on my part, was Seva Aparad, and even Vaishnava Aparad. The servants of Radha Gopivallabha are more worshipable than Radha Gopivallabha. And I lost sight of that in that particular instance. There are two devotees, Chaitanya Nitai and his wife Anamsa. They were he was in Boston for quite a while. I served in the bar. I think he's from Massachusetts or New England. And then he married Anamsa, and she was there, and they were both serving for a while, a short period in the Boston Temple, serving Radha Gopivallabha until they moved. They abandoned us. I'm joking, I'm teasing. And they moved somewhere else to serve. But they were both very, very dedicated and meticulous in their service of Radha Gopivallabha, and particularly Anamsa. If any temple president, wherever you are, if you're hearing this, and Chaitanya Nitai and Anamsa happen to be in your community, if you have two brain cells to rub together, I take that back, but you get my point. Do whatever you can to make sure you do not lose Chaitanya Nitai and Anamsa. And you, dental insurance, life insurance, whatever you can to facilitate their being part of your deity worship program, they are jewels. You cannot get a more qualified couple, a more dedicated couple, a more well-suited and sincere couple for this service that I know of. Anamsa also has she was in the Boston Temple for one Janmashtami, I believe. And she created a beautiful decoration for Radha Gopivallabha. It looked like Radha Gopivallabha. And it was incredible because it like CGI in the movies. It was something like that, but it was 3D. If you stood back from the altar, she made this thing. It looked like a boat. So from a particular distance, about 5 or 6 meters away, standing off the altar in the temple room, it looked like Radha Gopivallabha were literally in a boat floating on the altar. She had another one of these devotees who could dress Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha in a way, in the same outfit that we've been seeing Radha Gopivallabha in for years. And you think, is that a new outfit? By the way, Anamsa dressed Radha Gopivallabha. So these are the devotees of Radha Gopivallabha, the servants of Radha Gopivallabha, who are more worshipable than Sri Radha Gopivallabha. I'm reminded of some of the times when, like on a festival occasion, and we would have Abhishek, and many devotees who were living outside would come in to help all the time. But also on Antaryami Prabhu and his wife Dakshina Mataji would come throughout the week, but also during festivals, and we would have Abhishek, and Abhishek for Gornitai, Snan Yatra, Janmashtami, and so on. And these were particularly, for me, they were very enlivening events because, as I mentioned earlier, Pujari service and Maha Visnu have a complicated relationship. But in those instances where I could watch, witness, and be with many other servants of Radha Gopivallabha and watch and witness the joy they got in serving Radha Gopivallabha, my joy was increased. I could experience and enjoy serving with them. So Antaryami Prabhu used to come. Dakshina Mataji used to come. Rohini. Rohini was very good. Rohini, first of all, Antaryami and Dakshina Mataji, they would come, and they were an incredible couple in the sense that they would recognize that me being a manager, at least in that particular time, I was under all kinds of stress. What manager isn't? But they had the ability to deal with me in my conditioning, chasing time schedules and issues and problems. They had a way of dealing with me in relation to Pujari service and taking care of the deities, and if it was Abhishek, they had a manner of dealing with me that actually calmed me down, that enabled me to serve in a way that was suitable for the occasion, that enabled me to serve in the mode of goodness. I won't say pure goodness. It was barely goodness. But if I would come into the Pujari room about an issue, where are the flowers? Antaryami would be there. And as soon as I would come in, my blood pressure would drop. I would come into the Pujari room, where is this? I would see Dakshina Mataji, my blood pressure would drop. These are the servants of Radha Gopivallabha who are more worshipable than Sri Radha Gopivallabha. Rohini was another one. I would look forward to Rohini coming for whatever puja, whatever service he was coming, because whenever I see Rohini, my blood pressure would drop, and I would just be lifted to another state of consciousness just by seeing him. And he would often come in with one of his daughters. And it was just such, he would bring in an energy, and he served Sri Radha Gopivallabha with an energy that was the energy. It was like serving in Vaikuntha. It was like serving in Vrindavan, serving with these servants of Radha Gopivallabha. And we would, sometimes he and I would be downstairs whipping up the preparations, the juices for the Abhishek. And it was such an enjoyable experience. We would be down also, not just with Rohini, with Guru Prasad Prabhu and his wife, Dayamai, preparing and being in the association of these devotees, these servants of Radha Gopivallabha, just enabled me to serve as a pujari in ways I would never be able to serve on my own. I would not be able to do it without Rohini and the way he lifted my consciousness, without Antaryami Prabhu, Dakshinamai, the way they pulled me out of my conditioning of trying to be a taskmaster and pulling me into the mood of Vaikuntha, the mood of Vrindavan, the mood of serving Sri Radha Gopivallabha. I would not be able to get into that. Guru Prasad Prabhu, Dayamai, these devotees. Dayamai was such as well. Her sincerity in wanting to serve Radha Gopivallabha to the best of her ability, but also to the highest standard. She was always asking, what's the highest standard? What's the best way? Is it supposed to be done like this or this? And why? Dayamai would always ask, well, why is it like that? Because she always wanted to serve at the highest standard that Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha should be served. And thus forcing me to come to a higher standard of consciousness in order to associate, in order to serve, in order to facilitate her service to Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha. Guru Prasad as well. Guru Prasad is an incredibly qualified person. Serving with him was not only uplifting, it was also because I knew, or he knew me, when I was a little snot-nosed brat running around the LA temple in the late 70s, or mid 80s, or in Mayapur in India. So he's known me since I was a snot-nosed brat. So he brought and he knew how to deal with me in a way that completely bypassed my ego. Incredibly necessary for someone like me in serving in the capacity of a pujari or helping others to serve in that capacity. These are the servants of Radha Gopivallabha who are more worshipable than Radha Gopivallabha. Lakshmi Narayan Prabhu. What can you say about Lakshmi Narayan Prabhu? This is what I can say about Lakshmi Narayan Prabhu. We all know Lakshmi Narayan Prabhu is his enthusiasm, his love, that's it. His love for Radha Gopivallabha is contagious. Talk about a virus. Lakshmi Narayan is a virus of love for Radha Gopivallabha. You cannot be in the same area as Lakshmi Narayan Prabhu and not be infected by love of Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha. When I was developing, we're going through, he's as we know, he's a professional. And he was helping me deal with the financial aspects of the temple. And we were establishing the membership program. I don't know what the membership program is now, but at the time, he was helping me put it, no, he wasn't helping me. He was putting it together. I was there watching. And he said, we should call this program. There was many, I remember this meeting. There were many devotees that were talking about various issues. And he said, we should call it the membership program, the Lovers of Radha Gopivallabha. And every single person in that room, including me, led by me, this is what happens when you have an unqualified leader. Everyone in that room, led by me, an unqualified leader, thought, Lovers of Radha Gopivallabha? That's a bit on the nose, don't you think? And of course, I gave voice to it, and because being an unqualified leader, I set the tone. And Lakshmi Narayan didn't miss a beat. He is consumed with love of Radha Gopivallabha. That we all know for certain. And he says, yes, Lovers of Radha, we know his enthusiasm. Yes, Lovers of Radha Gopivallabha for the membership program. Those who love Radha Gopivallabha, they will give everything. thinking, dude, this is what happens when you have an unqualified leader. But then, okay, well, all right, we'll call it Lovers of Radha Gopivallabha. He was right. He was 110% right. The Lovers of Radha Gopivallabha. And of course he was right. A week later, membership roll was, not a week later, a month, let's be honest. A month, membership was packed. The temple was fully financed in terms of reaching the monthly budget. Fully financed, whereas previously it was in the red. 2 months, accounts fully in the black, because the Lovers of Radha Gopivallabha, led by Lakshmi Narayan, had no problem serving Radha Gopi. This is when the servants of Radha Gopivallabha are more worshipable than Sri Radha Gopivallabha. Lakshmi Narayan, sometimes I would be giving the class like the Sunday feast lecture. I don't know how the schedule is now, but the lecture was a lecture and then the arati. So sometimes the pujari is on the altar. Rohini would do this too sometimes. So sometimes I give a lecture and I would like to quiz the devotees during the lecture. You'd hear Lakshmi Narayan on the altar. You know, who was the devotee who did this? I'd be asking the question, the quiz. And Lakshmi Narayan would call from the altar. Oh, he would give the answer. Rohini was the same way. Rohini would always do that. He'd say, all right, quiz. Who was the person? And oftentimes the question would be for some of the kids who were in the lecture. Oh, what was the name of the snake that Krishna danced on his hoods? And then one kid would raise his hand and Rohini or Lakshmi Narayan from the altar, because the curtains are closed, right? From the back, and you go, oh, Kaliya. I was like, thank you very much. These are the wonderful servants of Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha, who are more worshipable than Sri Radha Gopivallabha. Sachimata. Sachimata. And Indulekha. How could you possibly forget these two? Indulekha Mataji. She, same thing as I've mentioned for Chaitanya Nitai and Anamsa. Anyone, temple president, GBC person, if you happen to come across Indulekha Mataji, don't let her leave. Do whatever you can to entice her, to encourage her, to empower her to serve on your temple's altar. You will. I've served on altars in India, Europe, and the United States. In my experience, there has never been a head pujari with the qualification, with the heart, the ability. Indulekha was one of those types of person where she was in empowerment. She could empower anyone to serve Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha. I was the problem. As I mentioned earlier, I was completely under the modes of material nature in my management style. So I was process, procedure, and making aparad, seva aparad, Vaishnava aparad along the way. Indulekha managed the Boston Temple Pujari department. She was a head Pujari. She left me and went to India. I'm teasing. She managed the Pujari department the way I've never seen a Pujari department managed in India, Europe, and the United States. I've been a devotee my entire life. Trust me on this. If you're a leader anywhere in the world and you know Indulekha, get her. Don't let her go. Give her and her family whatever they need. And I cannot say enough about Indulekha. When she had to go to take care of her family for a period of time, there was a hole left in the Boston community and in the Boston Temple, and certainly in the Pujari department, that I was never, ever able to fill. You cannot, she is irreplaceable. Indulekha is irreplaceable as a head Pujari. I'll leave it at that. Sachimata is another. Sachimata is, she does, in terms of capacity, twice as much as anyone else, yet she also has, I want to say this correctly, she has twice the challenges in order to do what other people do, but yet she still does twice as much. Does that make sense? We all know, those of us who know, we know she has some challenges. We all have material bodies. With those challenges, she does twice as much as any other able-bodied person I know in terms of serving Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha. That's why Lord Shiva says, the servants of Radha Gopivallabha are more worshipable. That I've realized this by serving with the servants of Radha Gopi. I would not, if I did not serve with the servants of Radha Gopivallabha, I would not have this realization of this Aradhananam Sarvesham Vishnu Radhanam Param. Tasmat Parataram Devi Tadiyanam Samarchanam. That is the realization. That is the mercy, the grace that Srila Radha Gopivallabha has given to me. Maha Visnu, you moron. My devotees are more worshipable than me. Serve them, help them, empower them. You don't get on the altar. I don't want to have a turban hanging off. My greatest experience of Pujari service actually came with Sachimata. Mother Sachimata, she is a stalwart. She would come when nobody, I mean, she always came to serve Sri Radha Gopivallabha. And she was like, the U.S. Navy has these atomic clocks, right? The most precise clocks down to it measures time down to the atom, right? The most accurate timepiece is run by the U.S. Navy, or so I'm told. Anyways, that was Sachimata. Actually, I think I just compared it to a nuclear clock. That came out wrong. But you get my point. She was, it was metronomic. Her dedication, her reliability, her determination to be there for Sri Sri Radha Gopivallabha. Talk about the post office in sleet, rain, shine, or snow. The post office has nothing on Sachimata. When everybody else, all the pujaris in the temple are sick, there's 3 feet of snow because we just had a nor'easter here in Boston, and we have nor'easters are a dime a dozen in this part of the world. There's no one to come and serve Radha Gopivallabha. She shows up. I pick up the phone. Mataji, can you please come and save me? She's there. Not for me. She's there for Radha Gopi. The servants of Radha Gopivallabha are more worshipable. We've got to get this. The Vaishnavas, it's all about the Vaishnavas. She would show up. And I remember, and this is why I say my most incredible, uplifting, and my most powerful experience as a pujari came with Mother Sachimata. Inevitably, a winter, Mother Sachimata, there's no one here. Snow through the roof, a nor'easter from the night before. No one else can get in, drive, no one can come in, the roads are closed. How she showed up, I have no idea. She says, yes, I'll be there. No hesitation, not a moment's hesitation. And those of us who know Sachimata know she is a mother, a dedicated mother, grandmother. She is taking care of her entire family and herself. No hesitation. I look out the window, 4.5 feet of snow. No one there, and this is not at all about me. Not by a long shot. Get a snow shovel. I've got to clear out the parking space so that she can have a place to park. Where is she going to park her car? All the roads are closed because the city wants to plow the streets, understandably. I'm shoveling. We're all New Englanders, right? We can't stand shoveling snow. We get heart attacks doing it. 4 feet of snow, shoveling it. Clear out a space for her car. She drives in 20, 30 minutes later. That experience of shoveling snow so that she can come in to do service on the altar, that was my most powerful experience as a pujari, my most powerful pujari experience, not abhishek, not dressing deities to the best of my ability and the turban hanging off the side, not doing mangalarti, which I actually love, offering mangalarti of all things, not doing yagyas, none of that. It was actually, and I kid you not, it was shoveling snow and her coming in, having the gratitude that, okay, it's shoveled. She can get out of her car and go into the... That was the most powerful deity worship experience I've ever had, bar none. The servants of Radha Gopivallabha are more worshipable than Radha Gopivallabha. Hare Krishna.